All right, couple things I want to talk about real quick. Your test this week, I apologize to those of you that had the error. I think I got it straightened out before the majority of you took the test. But for those of you who kind of ran into the problem and you three know what it was, I do sincerely apologize about that. Blackboard is great. But it has sometimes it's hard to navigate, and it was just kind of one of those little glitches in the system. Um, for the for the most part, I hope to have these graded by Friday. I'm gonna tell you that mono has been spreading through my house like wildfire. I am currently drinking a monster drink so that I can do this lecture. This is going to be a fun couple weeks for me. Not feeling real good. So if you email me or you post a question, probably the best thing to do this week, instead of posting a question on the discussion board, if you have a question for me, the best thing you can do is text me. Guys, my cell phone number is on the syllabus. It's 859-30. Oh, yeah, I'm actually not going to do that because this goes up on my YouTube channel. Look on the syllabus. It's on my syllabus. Text me if you have a question. I think I've got my YouTube set up private, but I'm not 100% sure. So the test that you guys have taken this week is a very small portion of what my history 102 or 103 kids who are freshmen in college usually take. You had about, I would say maybe about 35% of the test that they normally take in an hour and 15 minutes. I gave you 2 hours for those two essays. So your next test goes up in point value. Your next test is 100 points. You will have much more to do next time. We'll talk more about that closer to time, but most likely there will be some matching and some multiple choice added into that. You will have an hour and 15 minutes just like my kids on campus have. So it'll be a little bit different. You're really going to have to watch your time, and you're going to have to pay close attention. These terms that I put up at the beginning of the week, if you are not studying them all week long, you need to be doing so. You need to be looking at how they go into the broader scope of what we are talking about, what we are discussing, and how everything connects together. Because what I'm asking you to do, the change from high school to college, a lot of times is simply in the way that we process information. I don't really ask that you do a rote memory on any names, dates, places, or anything like that. I want you to understand them. I want you to understand what happened, why it happened. I want you to question everything. Question it all. If something doesn't seem right to you whenever you read a primary source document, say that just doesn't seem quite right. Look for the things that's not there as well as the things that are there. So this is a lot more than just memorizing for multiple choice questions. I want to see your thought process. I want to see you develop those critical analytical thinking skills. And I will certainly be hounding that in a little more from this point on. I figure the first unit coming up to that test, it's more imperative that I do a lot of corrections and kind of point you in the right direction. And I will continue to do that because you can't learn if somebody just marks your stuff wrong and says, "Oh, that's how it is." I want you to see why that is. So I will continue to do that. You'll see that on your exam. This exam will prepare you for the ones coming up. So that's where we're at. If you have any questions, again, please get a hold of me. Use my cell phone this week because I'm feeling really bad. Other than that, let's roll. All right, so I put a video link up about the slave trade, which technically probably should have fallen in that last unit, but I like it a little bit better in this unit. It will kind of go back with chapter 5 a little bit, but that's okay. But we're gonna, watch that video on the slave trade. And then I want to take the time talking to you about this building an empire, because what a lot of people don't understand is that with that, that population explosion that occurs in the United States, in the colonies during the 1700s. Um, it's almost like a second empire coming up here. The British had, we don't actually see the word imperialism come up until right around the late 1800s is the first time that it's really used. But the British have been very imperialistic. And so the people that are in the colonies, they don't consider themselves necessarily colonists. They consider themselves, for the most part, still British. They are British. They are British people who happen to live in a different part of the globe. It's just like if you were born, my husband's from Iowa. If you ask him where he's from, he's going to say, I'm from Iowa, even though he now lives in Kentucky. It's still kind of that same kind of mentality. You're still connected to that original home place. And even though we're several generations out, they do still very much consider themselves English. They can consider themselves British. The idea of people saying the British are coming, no, the colonists were British. They are just as much connected to the motherland as the people who live there in many ways. But, I do want you to continue thinking about this idea that all of these colonies, I need you to keep them in their own time, their own place, and their own kind of identity. It's not like what we see right now. The United States is a bunch of states connected together to create one country. These are areas who function completely independently. Some of these colonies are proprietary, some are royal chartered, some are religious chartered. You know, they have all different reasons for why they formed, and a lot of times they are operating completely in isolation to one another. We don't have planes, trains, any of that kind of stuff, cars that can allow transportation from, say, Jamestown to Massachusetts Bay. We don't have those things. So travel is long and difficult, and it's hard for them to establish unity amongst themselves. So they do develop somewhat in isolation from one another. However, as the British populations explode, more and more of those colonies were pushing their boundaries, and the cultures had more and more encounters because of border raiding and skirmishes are absolutely the norm during this time. So we've talked about how they're made up. Sorry, I accidentally hit pause there. So we've talked about how the colonies are composed of mixed ethnic backgrounds, and that being particularly true in the middle colonies. And the colonists are about half British and half other. And so what we're going to really focus on during these lectures is looking to see what happens now. So you have this conglomeration of French and German and Spanish and English all in the United States trying to develop their own colonies. Dutch. There's this massive ethnic variety. And what happens now? And something else to keep in mind. Spain, England, and France, they are constantly at odds with one another until, even up until World War I. We see where they fight one another nonstop. That's just what they did. Wikipedia has a list of French and English battles that span from about 1302 to 1800. And this may not, I don't encourage you to use Wikipedia. Only use Wikipedia if you're just looking for background knowledge, okay? But sometimes you can use Wikipedia for things. There's a list of 116 battles just in the 1300s between England, Spain, and France. 116 battles, guys, in the 1300s. One of those battles is the War of Jenkins' Ear. Jenkins, Jenkins, Jenkins' Ear. This is a Spanish where the Spanish and English are actually fighting over piracy, the Piracy Act of someone losing an ear, guys, an ear. They will fight over anything. A nation, if you think about it, a nation can really only grow wealth at the expense of another. You have to expose another country to gain the foothold and the wealth that you want to. You can look at the English coming to the United States, taking the ground from the natives. Who is exploited in that situation? The Native Americans, obviously. And so a lot of times things happen because of rumors. Now, if you look at this map, you can kind of really get a glimpse of what's going on here. You've got the British here. Whoops, sorry. You've got the British here. You've got the French that are sitting really in this Ohio Valley region. You've got the Spanish down in Florida. And the Spanish are running right over in here. So as the British start pushing this border right here, they're going to come into some problems with the French. As they start pushing this border right here, they're going to run into some problems with the Spanish. So if the English people are constantly coming across here, taking, and I hope that my mouse shows on your all stuff, taking lands from the French, and if they're doing these border skirmishes and raiding, then you certainly run into problems. And the French and the British are not, they're certainly not new at fighting. So one of the ways I like to explain this is my girls and my niece, especially when they were little. Now I will say they are the best of friends. But when they were little, they fought nonstop. Non-stop. And you never knew how my youngest was going to ally with them. The two older girls, my niece and my oldest daughter, were constantly going at it. So you can look at this certainly here. The British and the French are going to constantly be at odds. It's just a matter of where does Spain ally a lot of the times. So I like to think about it with in that way of looking at the kids. My youngest was the wild card. My youngest was Spain. You never knew who she was going to ally with. And so that's what we see here. We see these three countries who have gone at it constantly in the European part of the world. Now they're going to expand those battles, and they're going to have those battles on the American soil. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Jonathan Smith wrote in 1710, "Besides, as the vilest writer has his readers, so the greatest liar has his believers. And it often happens that if a lie be believed only for an hour, it has done its work, and there is no further occasion for it. Falsehood flies, and the truth comes limping after it. So that when men come to be undeceived, it is too late. The jest is over, and the tale has had its effect." I love this quote. This quote is probably one of my all-time favorite quotes, because I believe it is not only applicable to the 1710, but I think it's very applicable today. I'm sure you guys can see this still being in a high school seniors, and things tend to fly and spread, and rumors can be very damning. They can, whether they are true or not, a rumor that lasts 10 minutes can do a ton of damage. It's kind of like the telephone game. Did you guys ever play the telephone game when you were kids and you started, if you were sitting in class, I would actually have you play the telephone game right now. Something that is said to begin with is really different by the time you get around that entire class. And by the end, is there any truth even left? And do you believe what you were told? And this is the case a lot of times right now in this time period in the 1700s. how easy is it to start a rumor and people believe it? I mean, you don't have any fact checkers. I mean, you can't go on to Snopes or anything like that to fact check. So I want you to spend some time, think about this.